The stars in Sigma Null were dim and tired. This was a place where things came to die. Old stations drifted without power. Broken satellites tumbled in endless circles. And ships, hundreds of ships from dozens of species, floated in the darkness like bones in a cosmic graveyard. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the bridge window of the Secondhand Hope and looked out at the field of metal corpses. Her ship was small. It was old. The paint on the hull was chipped, and the engines made sounds that no engine should make. But it flew, and that was enough. "Scan complete, Captain," said Lieutenant Park from his station. His voice was flat. They had been searching for 3 days and found nothing but junk. More of the same. Burned-out reactors, collapsed hulls. Nothing we can use. Elena did not turn from the window. "Keep scanning." The crew of the Secondhand Hope was tired. They were all tired. Earth's interstellar program was young and poor. The great powers of the galaxy, the Cavern Hegemony, the Syndicate of Voices, the Pale Collective, had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Humanity had been doing it for less than a century. They were children playing in a game built for giants. And so they came to places like Sigma Null, the junkyard systems, the places where elder races threw away what they no longer needed. One species' garbage was another species' survival. "Captain," the voice belonged to Dr. Marcus Chen, the ship's chief engineer. He was a thin man with gray hair and eyes that never stopped moving. "I'm getting something strange on the long-range sensors." Elena finally turned. "Strange how?" "Big, very big. And the composition doesn't match anything else in this field." He paused, fingers dancing over his console. "It's Kavaran." The bridge went silent. The Kavaran hegemony was the oldest power in the known galaxy. Their technology was not built, it was grown. Their ships were living things, vast organisms of metal and flesh that healed their own wounds and thought their own thoughts. No other species truly understood how Kavaran technology worked, and the Kavaran liked it that way. "Show me," Elena said. The main screen flickered to life. At first, Elena thought there was an error. The object on the screen was too large. It had to be a station, or a small moon, or... "That's a ship," Marcus said quietly. "A Kavaran dreadnought. The Vekthar's judgment, if the registry signature is correct." Elena's mouth went dry. She had seen Kavaran vessels before, from a distance. Small ones, scout ships and traders. But this was something else entirely. The Vekthar's judgment was nearly 3 kilometers long. Its hull was dark purple, the color of bruised flesh covered in organic patterns that looked like veins or roots. Weapon mounts dotted its surface like thorns on a vine. Even dead and drifting, it looked dangerous. "Why would the Kavaran abandon a dreadnought?" asked Lieutenant Park. "Only one reason." Marcus pulled up more data. "It's broken, and they can't fix it." That seemed impossible. Kavaran ships fixed themselves. That was their entire advantage. But as the Secondhand Hope drew closer, the truth became clear. The Vekthar's judgment was not just damaged, it was destroyed from within. The scans painted a picture of catastrophe. The quantum consciousness core, the living brain of the ship, was shattered, scattered across 3 decks like broken glass. The weapon systems were trapped in endless diagnostic loops, trying again and again to reconnect with a mind that no longer existed. The propulsion matrix, the great biological engine that pushed the ship between stars, was fused into solid slag. "Cause of death?" Elena asked. Marcus shook his head. "Hard to say. Some kind of internal explosion maybe, or a targeted attack that hit exactly the right spot. The point is, the consciousness is gone. Without it, a Kavaran ship is just meat and metal. It can't heal. It can't think. It can't do anything. So they left it here to rot. They had no choice. Their technology is designed to regenerate. When something dies, truly dies, they have no way to bring it back. To them, this ship is a corpse." Elena stared at the screen. A corpse. A 3-kilometer corpse filled with technology that humanity could barely dream of. Weapons that could crack planets, armor that could shrug off nuclear fire, systems that the greatest minds on Earth would spend lifetimes trying to understand. "What do you see, Marcus?" she asked. "When you look at that ship?" The old engineer was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. Something hungry. "I see a patient," he said. "A patient that needs a different kind of doctor." The crew thought she was insane. Lieutenant Park said it first, but the others agreed. The Vecthar's judgment was dead. It was garbage. It would take years to even understand what they were looking at, let alone repair it. And even if they could repair it, the Kavaran would never allow humans to operate one of their dreadnoughts. It would mean war. Elena listened to all of their objections. She let them speak, and when they were finished, she gave her orders. "Attach towing cables. We're taking it home." The journey back to human space took 4 months. The second-hand Hope was never designed to tow anything, certainly not a ship 50 times its own mass. The engine screamed in protest. The hull groaned under stresses it was never meant to bear. 3 times the crew had to stop for emergency repairs. Twice they nearly lost the tow cables entirely. But they made it. They dragged the corpse of the Vecthar's judgment through the empty spaces between stars, past the borders of Kavaran territory, past the watching eyes of syndicate patrols, into the safety of human space. Or what passed for safety? Humanity's territory was small, a handful of systems clustered around Earth. They had no great fleets, no mighty stations, no weapons that could threaten the elder races. They survived because they were too small to notice, too poor to rob, too weak to fear. That was about to change. The ship was taken to a place called the Forge. It was a secret, one of the few secrets humanity managed to keep from the galaxy's many spies. Hidden in the asteroid belt of an unclaimed system, the Forge was where Earth's military built the weapons they hoped they would never need. Experimental drives, prototype armor, things that might someday close the gap between humanity and the powers that surrounded them. Now it had a new project. Elena stood in a viewing gallery and watched as hundreds of workers swarmed over the Vecthar's judgment. The ship was even more impressive up close. Its hull was not metal, not exactly. It was something organic, something that had once been alive, now frozen in death. The patterns on its surface looked like tree rings or fingerprints or the folds of a brain. Beautiful and alien and deeply, deeply strange. They're calling it a waste of resources. Admiral Huang stood beside her, his hands clasped behind his back. He was the commander of Earth's small fleet, and he had not been happy when Elena brought her prize home. "The Council thinks we should strip it for parts. Sell what we can, use the rest for scrap." "And what do you think, Admiral?" Huang was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. "I think you're either going to save us or doom us. I haven't decided which." "That makes 2 of us." The work began. It was slow. It was frustrating. It was, at times, seemingly impossible. The first problem was understanding. Kavaran technology was not designed to be understood by outsiders. The ship's systems were organic, grown rather than manufactured. They did not have circuit boards or wiring diagrams. They had cells and neurons and things that human science had no names for. Dr. Marcus Chen led the research team. He had brought 30 of Earth's best engineers with him, and within a week, he had requested 100 more. Within a month, he had requested specialists from every field imaginable. Biologists, neurologists, metallurgists, programmers, even artists and musicians who might see patterns that engineers missed. "The ship wasn't built," he explained to Elena during one of her visits. "It was born. It grew from a seed, like a plant or an animal. Every system is connected to every other system. The hull is part of the armor, is part of the weapons, is part of the engine. You can't separate them. You can't understand one piece without understanding the whole." "Can we repair it?" Marcus laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Repair it? Captain, we can barely read it. The Kavaran have been growing ships for 10,000 years. We've been in space for less than 100. It's like asking a child to perform brain surgery." But they kept trying. Day after day, week after week, they studied the corpse of the Vecthar's judgment. They mapped its dead systems. They traced its frozen pathways. They learned its language, slowly and painfully, one word at a time. And as they learned, they began to see something. Not a way to heal the ship. That was beyond them, perhaps beyond anyone. But a way to save it. A way to give it new life, even if that life was different from what it had known before. We can't regrow what was lost, Marcus told Elena one night, his eyes bright with exhaustion and excitement. But we can replace it. We can give the ship a new brain, new nerves, new muscles, not cavern parts, human parts. Elena frowned. Will that work? Our technology is nothing like theirs. No, it isn't. But that might be our advantage. He pulled up a schematic on his tablet, a twisted mess of organic curves and straight mechanical lines. Cavern technology is elegant, perfect. Each system has one purpose, one function, and it does that function flawlessly. But when something breaks, there's no backup, no alternative. The whole system fails. And human technology? Marcus smiled. Human technology is ugly, redundant. We build three systems where one would do, because we know that systems fail. We add manual overrides because we don't trust automation. We duct tape and patch and jury rig because we can't afford perfection. He looked up at her. The Coveron threw this ship away because they couldn't make it perfect again. But maybe perfect isn't what it needs. Maybe what it needs is good enough. Elena looked at the schematic. It was monstrous. A chimera. A thing that should not exist. She smiled. Start cutting. 3 years passed. 3 years of cutting and welding and cursing and praying. 3 years of failures and setbacks and breakthroughs that came at 3 in the morning when everyone was too tired to celebrate. 3 years of watching the corpse of the Vekthar's judgment slowly, painfully, impossibly come back to life. Dr. Marcus Chen had not slept properly in months. His hair, once merely gray, was now white. His hands shook when he held them still, though they were steady as stone when he worked. He had lost 15 pounds, gained 100 new wrinkles, and discovered muscles in his back that he never knew existed, mostly because they never stopped hurting. He had also built a miracle. Main power is stable, reported engineer Kowalski from the reactor bay. Human fusion cores are running at 87% integration with Kavaran distribution networks. Weapon systems are responding, added Commander Yuki Tanaka from the tactical station. She was a small woman with a face like carved granite and eyes that could freeze water. Targeting is sluggish but functional. I can work with sluggish. Marcus nodded, making notes on his tablet. Around him, the bridge of the reborn ship hummed with activity. It was a strange place. Alien curves meeting human angles. Organic walls studded with mechanical screens. Consoles that looked grown from the floor connected to keyboards that had been bolted on afterward. Beautiful and ugly at the same time. Perfect in its imperfection. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the center of it all, her hands clasped behind her back, watching her crew work. She had aged too these past 3 years. Gray had crept into her dark hair. Lines had appeared around her eyes, but she stood straighter than ever, and when she spoke, even admirals listened. Status report, she said. Everything. Marcus stepped forward. The ship is approximately 60% operational by original Kavaran standards, which I should note means it's approximately 300% more capable than anything else in humanity's fleet. The consciousness core? Gone, forever. The original mind of the ship was destroyed beyond any hope of recovery. Marcus paused. But we've installed a replacement. It's not Kavaran. It's a distributed human AI network, running on 17 separate processing nodes throughout the ship. If one node fails, the others take over. It's slower than the original system, less elegant, but it works, and it won't die from a single lucky hit. Elena nodded. Propulsion? We cut out the original propulsion matrix entirely. It was biological, and dead biology can't be restarted. It just rots. We've installed 4 human-designed fusion drives in its place. The ship is slower than it was, maybe 30% slower, but the new engines are reliable, and we can actually repair them when they break. Weapons? Commander Tanaka stepped forward. The Kavaran weapons were never actually broken. They were locked. The original consciousness core controlled everything: navigation, life support, weapons. When the core died, the weapons went into diagnostic mode, trying to reconnect with a mind that no longer existed. So what did you do? Tanaka allowed herself a small, fierce smile. We cheated. We bypassed the locks entirely, hardwired manual controls into every weapon system, added our own targeting computers on top of the Kavaran systems. The ship's original weapons were designed to be fired by thought, by the consciousness of the ship itself. Now they're fired by us, using triggers and buttons and good old-fashioned human hands. She pulled up a display showing the weapon loadout. 16 primary beam weapons, each capable of cutting through a kilometer of solid rock. 48 secondary plasma cannons. 200 missile tubes, though we're still working on manufacturing compatible ammunition. And the main weapon, a spinal-mounted particle cannon that the Cavaran called the Voice of Judgment. We haven't tested it yet. We're frankly a little scared too. Elena studied the display. Defensive systems? The armor is the one thing we didn't need to change much, Marcus said. Cavaran hull material is incredible. It's technically dead now, but it still has properties we can barely measure. Self-sealing at a microscopic level, energy absorbent, radar scattering. A direct nuclear hit would barely scratch it. But we added more anyway, Tanaka continued. Human-designed shield generators at 12 points around the hull, point defense systems to intercept missiles, and damage control stations every 100 meters because Cavaran ships were designed to heal themselves, and this one can't anymore. We have to heal it ourselves the old-fashioned way. Elena was quiet for a long moment, taking it all in. Then she asked the question that had been on everyone's mind for 3 years. Will it fly? Marcus and Tanaka exchanged glances. The engineer spoke first. Captain, this ship is a mess. It's held together with patches and prayers. Half the systems barely talk to each other. The AI network has the personality of a confused calculator. The engines sound like dying animals. And every time we power up the main reactor, I expect the whole thing to explode. He paused and his tired face split into a grin. But yes, it will fly. The ship needed a new name. The Vectar's judgment was dead. This was something else. Something new. Something that had been given a second chance at life. They called it the Lazarus. The first test flight was supposed to be simple. Undock from the forge. Move to a safe distance. Test the engines. Return. Nothing complicated. Nothing dangerous. Of course, nothing went according to plan. The undocking was smooth enough. The massive clamps released, and the Lazarus drifted free for the first time in 3 years. From outside, it looked almost unchanged. The same purple hull, the same organic curves, the same thorny weapon mounts. Only close inspection revealed the differences. The seams where human technology had been grafted on, the geometric shapes of fusion engines replacing organic propulsion, the sharp angles of shield generators breaking up the flowing lines. Engines responding, reported the helmsman. Beginning acceleration. The ship moved. It was a strange sensation. 3 years of living in a dead thing, and now it was alive again. The deck vibrated beneath Elena's feet. The walls hummed with power, and somewhere deep in the ship's distributed brain, 17 AI nodes worked together to keep everything running. All systems nominal, Marcus reported. No major faults, minor fluctuations in... An alarm screamed. Contact, Lieutenant Park shouted from sensors. Multiple contacts emerging from behind the fourth moon. They must have been hiding in the shadow. Elena's blood went cold. Identify. Syndicate configuration. 7 vessels. Hunter-killer class. Park looked up, his face pale. They're targeting us. The Syndicate of Voices. One of the 3 great powers and the most aggressive. Their ships were fast, deadly, and crewed by beings who saw warfare as an art form. 7 of their hunter-killers could tear through a human battle group without breaking stride. And the Lazarus was alone. Untested, its systems barely functional, its crew still learning how to operate it. They must have had a spy at the forge, Tanaka said grimly. They've been waiting for us. The communication system crackled to life. A voice emerged, smooth and cold and utterly inhuman. Human vessel, you are in possession of stolen property. You will surrender the Cavaran ship immediately. Your crew will be taken as prisoners. Resistance will result in destruction. Elena stared at the tactical display. 7 contacts spreading into an attack formation. They were fast, faster than the Lazarus, certainly. In a few minutes, they would be in weapons range. In a few more minutes, this would all be over. Captain? Park's voice was shaking. Your orders? Elena looked around the bridge. At Marcus, who had given 3 years of his life to this moment. At Tanaka, whose hands were already moving toward the weapons console. At the crew who had worked and sacrificed and believed, against all reason, that they could bring a dead ship back to life. "Battle stations," she said quietly, then louder. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." The Lazarus had never fired its weapons in combat. Its shields had never been tested under fire. Its crew had never worked together against a real enemy. Everything about this was wrong, but they had come too far to surrender. The first Syndicate ship closed to attack range and opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked across space, brilliant blue against the blackness. They struck the Lazarus amidships, and the human-installed shields flared to life, absorbing the impact. "Shields holding," reported the shield officer, surprise evident in her voice. "Minor fluctuation, but holding." "Return fire," Elena ordered. Tanaka's fingers danced across her console. The Lazarus shuddered as its weapons activated for the first time in years. Kavaran beam weapons, fired through human targeting systems, powered by human reactors, controlled by human hands. The beam caught the attacking ship dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Syndicate vessel simply came apart, its hull splitting open, its atmosphere venting into space, its engines exploding in a cascade of secondary detonations. The bridge was silent. "One down," Tanaka said finally. Her voice was not quite steady. "6 to go." The remaining Syndicate ships hesitated. They had expected an easy kill, a crippled hulk, a skeleton crew, weapons that didn't work. Instead, they had just watched one of their own die in seconds. They attacked anyway. They were Syndicate after all. They did not know how to retreat. The next few minutes were chaos. Plasma fire from 6 directions, shields flaring and flickering. Damage reports flooding in as systems that had never been tested under combat conditions began to fail. But the Lazarus fought back. Beam after beam lanced out into the darkness. Syndicate ships burned. 1, 2, 3. A lucky hit breached the secondary hull on Deck 12. Atmosphere screamed into vacuum, but human damage control teams were already there, sealing the breach with emergency patches while the ship's dead biology could not. Another beam. Another kill. 4 Syndicate ships destroyed. The remaining 2 broke formation and ran. Their engines pushed them toward the edge of the system, toward the safety of open space and the jump points that would take them home. "Should we pursue?" Park asked. Elena watched the fleeing ships on her display. She could give the order. The Lazarus was wounded but functional. Its weapons still worked. It could chase them down, destroy them, leave no witnesses to report what they had seen. "No," she said. "Let them go." "Captain, let them go." She turned to face her crew, her eyes hard. "Let them go home. Let them tell everyone what they saw here today." The bridge was quiet. Then slowly, Tanaka began to smile. "A message," the commander said. "You want them to carry a message." "I want them to carry a warning." Elena looked back at the display, at the wreckage of 4 Syndicate ships, at the fleeing lights of the survivors. "The galaxy thought we were scavengers, junk collectors, too weak to matter." She placed her hand on the wall of the Lazarus, on the warm, humming surface where dead alien technology and living human ingenuity had become something new. "Let them know they were wrong." The news spread like fire through dry grass. Within hours, the surviving Syndicate ships had transmitted their reports. Within days, those reports had leaked to the galactic networks. Within weeks, every species in known space was talking about what the humans had done. They had raised a Kavaran dreadnought from the dead. In the great halls of the Kavaran hegemony, there was outrage. The Vekthar's judgment had been a corpse. Yes, but it had been their corpse, their technology, their secrets. And now it was in the hands of primitives who had no right to touch it, let alone remake it in their own image. High Commander Sorveth, the eldest of the Kavaran war leaders, watched the footage of the battle for the 20th time. His face, if it could be called a face, showed no expression. His species had evolved beyond such simple displays long ago. But his voice, when he finally spoke, was like ice cracking. "This is not repair," he said. "This is violation. They have cut apart a sacred vessel and filled it with their crude machinery. They have made a mockery of 10,000 years of evolution. The ship fights, observed tactician Veleth, his second. It fights well. Of course it fights. Our weapons are the finest in the galaxy. Even grafted onto human garbage, they remain effective. Sorveth turned from the screen. But this cannot be allowed. If the humans can raise one of our dead ships, they can raise others. Every vessel we have ever lost becomes a potential weapon against us. What do you propose? I propose we take back what is ours. And then we ensure that the humans understand the consequences of touching things beyond their comprehension. In the sprawling networks of the Syndicate of Voices, there was fury. 4 ships lost to a single enemy. 4 crews dead. The Syndicate had not suffered such a defeat in living memory, and they had suffered it at the hands of humans, a species they had barely considered worthy of notice. Speaker Tertius, the current voice of the Syndicate's War Council, addressed the assembled commanders. We underestimated them, the speaker said. The admission was painful, but necessary. We sent a raiding party against what we believed was a crippled hulk. We were wrong. We will not be wrong again. The humans have 11 warships, reported Fleet Commander Voss. We have seen records of all of them. The others are primitive, barely capable of interstellar combat. Only this one vessel, this Lazarus, represents a true threat. Then we destroy it, concentrate our forces, overwhelm it with numbers. The Cavern are mobilizing as well. They want the ship back. Speaker Tertius considered this. The Syndicate and the Cavern had been rivals for centuries, cold wars and border disputes and careful dances of power. But perhaps in this moment they had a common enemy. Open communication with the hegemony, the speaker ordered. Perhaps it is time to set aside old disagreements. In the quiet chambers of the Pale Collective, there was calculation. The collective did not feel fury or outrage. They did not feel anything at all as far as other species could tell. They simply observed, analyzed, and acted according to their endless calculations. Administrator 712 reviewed the data. A human vessel had destroyed 4 Syndicate ships in its first combat engagement. The vessel was a hybrid, Kavaran technology modified with human systems. Crude but effective, dangerous in ways that pure Kavaran or pure human technology was not. The calculations were troubling. If humans could do this with one salvaged ship, what else might they do? Their species was young, adaptable, aggressive. They bred quickly. They learned quickly. They had a disturbing tendency to survive situations that should have killed them. The collective had always viewed humans as a minor variable, too small to matter, too weak to threaten, but variables changed. Small factors could become large ones. A species that could raise dead ships might, in time, become a species that could challenge the established order. Better to eliminate the variable now, while it was still manageable. Administrator 712 transmitted a single message to both the Cavern hegemony and the Syndicate of Voices. It was short, precise, and contained a proposal that would have been unthinkable a month ago. Coalition, alliance, combined fleet, the destruction of the human threat. The response was immediate. For the first time in galactic history, the 3 great powers agreed on something. Humanity had to be stopped. On Earth, the news arrived like a death sentence. Admiral Huang stood before the United Earth Council, his face grave. Behind him, a massive display showed the tactical situation, and it was not good. The Kavaran hegemony is mobilizing 67 warships, he reported. The Syndicate of Voices has committed 83. The Pale Collective is sending 54. Total enemy strength, 204 capital ships, plus support vessels. The council chamber was silent. Elena Vasquez sat in the gallery, watching, listening. Our total fleet strength is 11 combat-capable vessels, Huang continued. 12 if we count the Lazarus. We are outnumbered approximately 17-1. Councilor Reeves, the senior representative, leaned forward. What are our options, Admiral? We have 2. Huang's voice was flat. Surrender or die. There must be something. Counselor, I have spent 40 years in Earth's military. I have fought in every engagement our species has ever had with alien forces. I am telling you, as clearly as I can, we cannot win this fight. Not conventionally. Not with the forces we have. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some called for negotiation. Some called for guerrilla warfare. Some called for the immediate surrender of the Lazarus, hoping that giving the aliens what they wanted would spare the rest of humanity. Elena stood. "Admiral," she said, cutting through the noise. The room fell silent. Everyone knew who she was, the captain who had brought back the dead ship, the woman who had started this crisis. "May I speak?" Huang hesitated, then nodded. "Captain Vasquez." Elena walked to the front of the chamber. She did not look at the council members. She looked at the tactical display, at the overwhelming force arrayed against them. "You're right," she said. "We can't win. Not the way they expect us to fight. Not ship against ship, fleet against fleet. They have numbers, experience, technology that we can barely understand." "Then what do you propose?" Councillor Reeves asked. "I propose we fight anyway." Elena turned to face the council. "I propose we take our 11 ships and we go out there and we show them that humanity doesn't surrender, that we don't accept death quietly, that even when the odds are impossible, we stand up and we fight. That's suicide. Maybe. Probably. But it's also a message." Elena's voice was steady. "The galaxy has been watching us since we first left Earth. They've seen us scavenge their garbage. They've seen us beg for scraps. They've seen us bow and scrape and try to survive in the cracks between their great powers." She pointed at the display. "This is our chance to show them something different, to show them that we're not afraid, that we're not weak, that even if they destroy us, they'll remember what it cost them." "And what about the people we leave behind?" another counselor demanded. "The billions on Earth, in our colonies? If we send our fleet to die, who protects them?" "No one." Elena met his eyes. "But if we surrender, no one protects them either. The Kavarn will take back their technology and call us thieves. The Syndicate will demand reparations we can't pay. The Collective will calculate that we're too dangerous to leave alive. One way or another, they'll come for us." She paused. "At least this way, we make them earn it." The debate lasted hours. In the end, there was no good option. Only bad ones and worse ones. The council voted to fight. The fleet gathered at the edge of human space. 11 ships, everything humanity had that could mount a weapon. The Lazarus was the largest by far, dwarfing the others like a whale among minnows. But even the smallest ship was crewed by volunteers, by men and women who knew they were probably flying to their deaths and chose to fly anyway. Elena stood on the bridge of the Lazarus, watching the fleet form up around her. Dr. Marcus Chen was at his station, making final adjustments to systems that would never be quite right. Commander Tanaka was running weapons diagnostics for the 100th time. The crew was quiet, focused. "Captain," Lieutenant Park's voice broke the silence. "I'm detecting something strange in the ship's bio-neural network. Increased activity in sectors we thought were completely dead." Elena frowned. "What kind of activity?" "I'm not sure. It's like echoes. Fragments of patterns that don't match anything in our systems." Marcus looked up, suddenly alert. "Show me." The display changed to show the internal network of the Lazarus. The pathways where Kavarn biology met human technology. Most of it was dark, dead, unchanged. But in certain nodes, deep within the ship's structure, there were flickers of light. Patterns that moved and shifted like thoughts trying to form. "That's impossible," Marcus breathed. "We mapped every neural pathway in this ship. There's nothing left of the original consciousness. Nothing." "Then what are we looking at?" Before anyone could answer, the communication system activated on its own. No one had touched it. No one had given a command. But words appeared on the screen, not in any human language, but in the flowing script of the Kavarn. "I remember." The bridge went absolutely silent. "The consciousness core was destroyed," Marcus said slowly. "But consciousness isn't just in the core. It's distributed throughout the entire neural network. Fragments, echoes, like memories stored in a million different places." "It's been awake this whole time?" "Not awake. Not exactly." Marcus studied the patterns on his display. "Dreaming, maybe, scattered. But we've been feeding it, pumping energy through networks it thought were dead, connecting it to new systems, giving it pathways it never had before. More words appeared on the screen. The script was shaky, uncertain, like a child learning to write. You fixed me? Elena stepped forward slowly. She had spent 3 years on this ship. She had walked its corridors, touched its walls, felt its engines thrum beneath her feet. She had never, not once, thought of it as alive. We tried to, she said. We couldn't do it the Kavaran way. So we did it our way. We gave you new parts. Human parts. A long pause, then, why? It was such a simple question. Why would humans spend 3 years and countless resources to save a dead alien ship? Why would they risk everything to give life to something that was never meant to live again? Elena thought about the junkyard at Sigma Null, about the field of corpses that the galaxy's great powers had thrown away, about everything humanity had built from salvage and scraps and stubborn refusal to give up. Because that's what we do, she said. We fix things. We don't give up on things just because they're broken. The ship was quiet. The fragments in the neural network pulsed and flickered, processing, thinking, remembering. Then finally new words appeared. I can help you. The awakening changed everything. The consciousness that had once been the Vekthar's judgment was not the same entity it had been before its death. It was fragmented, scattered across 1,000 neural pathways, stitched together with human technology in ways that the Kavaran had never imagined. It did not think the way a Kavaran ship mind was supposed to think, but it thought, and it remembered. Dr. Marcus Chen spent 18 hours in direct communication with the reborn consciousness. He did not sleep. He barely ate. He simply sat at his console and typed, receiving answers in shaky Kavaran script that gradually became clearer, stronger, more coherent. What is your name? He asked finally. The response came slowly. I was the Vekthar's judgment. I was the voice of the hegemony's will. I was perfect and complete and alone. And now, a long pause. Now I am broken, incomplete, patched with pieces that do not belong. I should not exist. Marcus leaned forward. But you do exist. Does that bother you? I do not know. I am trying to understand. The words flickered on the screen. The Kavaran would have let me die. They did let me die. I was nothing to them, a corpse to be forgotten. And we brought you back. You brought me back wrong, different. I am not what I was. No, Marcus agreed. You're not. Is that bad? The consciousness took a long time to respond. When it did, the words were careful, thoughtful. The Kavaran believe in perfection, in purity. A thing is either whole or broken, alive or dead. There is no middle ground. When I died, I was supposed to be gone forever. That was the natural order. Humans don't believe in natural orders, Marcus said. We believe in possibilities. You were broken, so we fixed you. You were dead, so we brought you back. Different isn't bad, it's just different. You are a strange species. Despite everything, Marcus smiled. You have no idea. Captain Vasquez called a meeting of the senior staff. The communication with the awakening consciousness had revealed something extraordinary, something that might change everything. The Vekthar's judgment was not just a dreadnought, she explained, pulling up schematics on the main display. It was a command ship, designed to coordinate entire fleets through quantum-entangled communication networks. Commander Tanaka leaned forward. You mean it could control other ships? Not control. Coordinate, share targeting data, synchronize maneuvers, make a fleet fight as a single unit instead of 11 separate vessels. Elena pointed to the network diagram. The system was built into the ship's consciousness core. When the core was destroyed, the system went dormant. But it wasn't destroyed, just sleeping. And now that the consciousness is waking up, Lieutenant Park began, now we can use it. Elena turned to face her officers. We can link all 11 of our ships into a single network. Every sensor reading shared instantly. Every weapon coordinated. Every maneuver synchronized. We won't just be fighting together. We'll be fighting as one. The room was silent as the implications sank in. Can it work? Marcus asked. Our ships use completely different systems, different computers, different protocols, different everything. The consciousness says it can adapt. It's already running on hybrid systems, Cavern networks connected to human technology. It knows how to translate between the two. Elena paused. It wants to help us. It's offering this as a gift. Why? Tanaka asked. The question was suspicious, but fair. Because we saved it. Elena met her eyes. Because when everyone else would have let it die, we gave it a second chance. It remembers being abandoned. It doesn't want to abandon us. The work took 3 days. 3 days of frantic engineering, desperate coding, and prayer to whatever gods might be listening. The coalition fleet was approaching fast. 200 ships moving in perfect formation, ready to crush humanity's last defense. On every human ship, technicians installed communication relays designed by the awakening consciousness. The technology was strange, half organic, half mechanical, grown from samples of the Lazarus' own neural tissue and connected to human computers with cables and adapters that looked like they belonged in a horror movie. But it worked. One by one, the 11 ships of humanity's fleet came online, their systems linking together, their sensors merging into a single vast network. Elena stood on the bridge of the Lazarus and felt the connections form. It was like nothing she had ever experienced. She could sense the other ships, not see them, but feel them. Their positions, their headings, their weapon status. The crew of the Hammer Strike was nervous but ready. The captain of the Defiant was saying a prayer. The gunners on the Last Word were making final adjustments to their targeting systems. Connection complete, the consciousness reported. Its voice, for it had developed a voice now, a strange blend of Cavaran tones and human inflection, came through speakers throughout the fleet. Network stable, all vessels integrated. How do you feel? Elena asked. I feel large. There was wonder in the voice. I was one ship. Now I am 11. I was alone. Now I am many. Welcome to humanity, Elena said. We do better when we're together. The coalition fleet emerged from jump space like a wall of death. 204 ships, spreading across the tactical display in perfect formation. Kavaran dreadnoughts with their purple hulls and organic curves. Syndicate hunter-killers, sleek and fast and cruel. Pale collective vessels, geometric and cold, their surfaces covered in calculations that only the collective could understand. Against them, 11 human ships, 12 counting the Lazarus. All ships, report status, Elena commanded. The responses came instantly, flowing through the network like thoughts through a brain. Weapons ready, shields online, crews standing by. They're hailing us, Lieutenant Park reported. Put them through. The main screen flickered to life, showing 3 faces, or what passed for faces among the coalition species. High Commander Sorveth of the Kavaran, his features smooth and unreadable. Speaker Tertius of the Syndicate, his multifaceted eyes glittering with barely contained rage. Administrator 712 of the Collective, its surface displaying complex mathematical patterns. Humans, Sorveth spoke first. You have one chance to surrender. Return the vessel you have stolen. Dismantle your fleet. Submit to judgment. Perhaps if you cooperate, some of your species will be allowed to survive. Elena smiled. It was not a friendly smile. High Commander, she said. With respect, no. Then you choose extinction. Maybe, but we choose it ourselves. She stood straighter. You threw that ship away. You left it to rot in a junkyard because you couldn't be bothered to fix it. And now you're angry that we did what you couldn't? You violated sacred technology. You desecrated. We saved it. Elena's voice was sharp. We took something dead and we gave it new life. That's not desecration. That's humanity. Speaker Tertius leaned forward. Brave words for a species about to die. Maybe. But here's the thing about humans. We don't accept death easily. We fight. We struggle. We find ways to survive that shouldn't be possible. Elena gestured at the fleet behind her. You see 11 ships. You think this will be easy. You're wrong. Your confidence is misplaced, Administrator 712 intoned. Our calculations show a 99.7% probability of your complete destruction. Then I guess we'll have to be the 0.3%. The communication ended. The coalition fleet began its advance. The Battle of the Threshold, as it would later be called, lasted for 2 hours and 17 minutes. It was the most one-sided engagement in galactic history, but not in the way anyone expected. The Coalition attacked with overwhelming force. Weapons fire from 200 ships concentrated on the small human fleet. It should have been over in seconds, but the human ships were not fighting as individuals. They were fighting as one. When the first volley came, the Lazarus's consciousness calculated firing solutions for the entire Coalition fleet, distributed targeting data to every human ship, and coordinated a response in less than a millisecond. 11 ships fired as a single weapon, their beams converging on a single Syndicate cruiser with perfect timing. The cruiser exploded. Before the Coalition could adjust, the human fleet had moved, not scattered but shifted, a fluid motion, like a school of fish evading a predator. Weapons fire that should have hit empty space passed through spaces the ships had just vacated. "They're coordinated," Tactician Velith reported to High Commander Sorveth, "moving as a single unit. I've never seen anything like it." "Impossible. They don't have the technology." "They do now." The battle continued. Human ships wove through the Coalition formation, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted, always covering each other's blind spots. When one ship took damage, others compensated, shifting formation to protect the wounded vessel while it retreated to repair. The Lazarus was at the heart of it all, not just the largest ship, but the brain of the fleet. Its awakening consciousness processed sensor data from 11 ships simultaneously, calculated thousands of firing solutions per second, coordinated movements that should have been impossible. Coalition ships began to fall. 10, 20, 50. For every ship the humans lost, they destroyed 5 in return. The mathematics were still against them. They were still outnumbered, still outgunned, but they were making the Coalition pay for every inch of space. "This is not possible," Administrator 712 stated. "Our calculations did not account for this level of coordination. The probability of their survival has increased to 12.3%. "Adapt," Speaker Tertius screamed. "Overwhelm them. We have numbers." But numbers meant nothing against an enemy that fought with a single mind. The human fleet flowed around the Coalition's attacks, punished every mistake, exploited every gap. Ships that had never trained together moved in perfect harmony, guided by a consciousness that had spent 3 years learning to bridge the gap between Kavaran thought and human action. And then, 2 hours into the battle, the tide began to turn. The Coalition fleet had lost 60 ships. Humanity had lost 3. The remaining Coalition commanders looked at their tactical displays and saw something they had never seen before: fear. "They're breaking formation," Lieutenant Park reported. "The collective vessels are pulling back." Elena watched the display. The Pale Collective was retreating, not routing, but executing a calculated withdrawal. Their cold mathematics had determined that the cost of victory exceeded the value of the objective. "The Syndicate is requesting a ceasefire," Park continued. "They want to negotiate." And then finally the Kavaran flagship began to move. Not backward, but forward, alone. High Commander Sorveth was coming for the Lazarus. "A matter of honor now. A personal challenge. All ships, hold position," Elena ordered. "This is between us and him." The Kavaran dreadnought was massive, larger even than the Lazarus, its hull gleaming with the health of a ship that had never known death. Its weapons charged, glowing with power that could crack moons. The Lazarus moved to meet it. The 2 ships closed, their weapons firing, their shields flashing. Kavaran technology against Kavaran technology. But one ship fought with the cold perfection of unbroken systems, while the other fought with the desperate creativity of a thing that should not be alive. The Lazarus took hit after hit. Its hybrid system screamed in protest. Human-installed components failed, were rerouted, failed again. The consciousness fought to maintain function as pieces of itself were burned away. But the Lazarus fought back. Its weapons, fired with human hands, found gaps in the Kavaran flagship's defenses. Its movements, guided by a mind that had learned to think in new ways, were unpredictable, unexpected. The final blow came not from the main weapons, but from a human-installed missile battery, crude by Kavaran standards but effective. The missiles punched through a weakened section of the flagship's hull and detonated inside. The Kavaran dreadnought went dark. Life signs aboard the flagship, Park reported. Fading. Hull breach on multiple decks. Elena stared at the crippled enemy ship. One order would finish it. One command would destroy High Commander Sorveth and everyone aboard. Dispatch rescue teams, she said. The bridge went silent. Captain? Tanaka asked. You heard me. Get rescue shuttles over there. Save everyone we can. They tried to destroy us, and they failed. Elena turned to face her crew. We've proven we can fight. Now let's prove we can choose not to. The rescue operation took 6 hours. Human shuttles crossed the space between the Lazarus and the crippled Kavaran flagship, again and again, carrying injured aliens to safety. The Kavaran did not understand at first. They expected execution or imprisonment or worse. Instead, they found human medics treating their wounds, human engineers stabilizing their dying ship, human hands reaching out to help. High Commander Sorveth was among the last to be evacuated. He was injured, burned across his torso by an electrical fire, barely conscious when the rescue team found him. When he woke, he was in the medical bay of the Lazarus, surrounded by human doctors and the soft hum of hybrid technology. Why? He asked. It was the only word he could manage. Captain Elena Vasquez stood by his bedside. She looked exhausted. They all looked exhausted, but her voice was steady. Because you were dying, she said, and we don't let people die if we can save them. We are enemies. You were enemies. Now you're patients. Elena gestured at the medical bay around them. This ship was supposed to be a corpse too. We saved it anyway. That's what we do. That's who we are. Sorveth was silent for a long time. Then slowly, he turned his head to look at the walls around him. The strange fusion of organic Kavaran technology and angular human machinery. This is an abomination, he said, but his voice was different now, quieter, more thoughtful. It is everything we believe should not exist, and yet it does exist. It lives. It fights. Better than it did before, in some ways. Yes, the admission seemed to pain him. I have studied your battle tactics, the coordination, the adaptation. My people designed those systems, but you have made them do things we never imagined. We build for perfection, you build for survival. Maybe that's why we work together so well. A weak laugh escaped Sorveth's damaged throat. You should have destroyed us. Any species with sense would have. We came to annihilate you, and you saved our lives. The galaxy will think you are fools. Let them think what they want. Elena leaned forward. We didn't save you to look good. We saved you because it was right, because we don't want to build our future on corpses. We've had enough of death. Sorveth studied her face for a long moment. Then he closed his eyes. I am beginning to understand, he said quietly, why my ship chose to fight for you. The negotiations that followed were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The coalition had expected to dictate terms to a defeated enemy. Instead, they found themselves at a table with a species that had just humiliated their combined fleets and was offering peace anyway. Let me be clear, Elena said, addressing the assembled representatives. Humanity has no interest in war. We never did. We built the Lazarus because we needed to survive, not because we wanted to conquer. Now that we've proven we can defend ourselves, we want to talk about something else. What do you want? Administrator 712 asked. The collective's calculations had been updated many times since the battle. Humanity was no longer a minor variable. We want to share. The room went silent. The technology that saved the Lazarus, the hybrid systems, the integration techniques, we want to teach it to everyone. Any species that wants to learn, we'll teach them. Any ship that breaks, we'll help them fix it. Why? Speaker Tertius demanded. You have an advantage, a weapon. Why would you give it away? Elena smiled. Because we don't want to be alone. We don't want to spend the next 1,000 years fighting wars with neighbors who are afraid of us. We want partners, allies, friends, if you can imagine such a thing. The galaxy has never worked that way, Sorveth said slowly. He had recovered enough to attend the negotiations, though he still moved carefully. The great powers compete. We take. We defend. We do not share. Maybe that's because you've never needed to. Elena gestured at the data displays showing the aftermath of the battle. You've been at the top for so long, you've forgotten what it's like to struggle. But we remember. We've been scavenging your garbage for a century. We've been building civilization from scraps. And we've learned something important along the way. What is that? Cooperation works better than competition. Fixing things works better than throwing them away. Building together works better than fighting each other. The representatives exchanged glances. This was not how defeated enemies were supposed to behave. This was not how young species were supposed to talk to their elders. You are asking us to trust you, Administrator 712 stated. The probability calculations for such trust are complex. I know, and I'm not asking you to trust us today, or tomorrow, or next year. I'm asking you to give us a chance. Let us prove that we mean what we say. Let us show you what we can build together. The silence stretched. Finally, it was the Kavaran High Commander who spoke. My ship, my former ship, has communicated with me. It says it was grateful for what you did, for bringing it back. Sorveth's voice was strange, as if he was speaking words he never expected to say. My people do not understand gratitude. We create and we discard. We do not consider what the discarded might feel. He stood slowly and painfully. I do not speak for the hegemony, but I speak for myself. I would like to learn more about this human way of thinking. Perhaps there is wisdom in it that we have overlooked. One by one, the other representatives spoke. Administrator 712 committed to further calculations. Speaker Tertius grudgingly agreed to suspend hostilities. Other species, smaller powers who had been watching from the sidelines, expressed interest in the technology that humanity was offering to share. It was not peace, not yet, but it was a beginning. The Lazarus returned to Earth as a hero. Crowds gathered at every station along the route, cheering as the massive ship passed by. The crew was celebrated, honored, showered with gratitude from a species that had been hours away from extinction. But Elena did not feel like celebrating. There was too much work to do. In the months that followed, she oversaw the establishment of what came to be called the Repair Initiative, a program to teach hybrid technology to any species willing to learn. Kavaran engineers came to study human adaptation techniques. Syndicate shipwrights learned to install backup systems and manual overrides. Pale Collective analysts developed new calculations that accounted for creative improvisation. It was slow work. It was frustrating work. Old prejudices died hard, and the great powers had been set in their ways for thousands of years. But change came. Slowly, gradually, one ship at a time. A Kavaran cruiser that would have been scrapped was rebuilt with human assistance, given new life as a training vessel for hybrid techniques. A syndicate fleet began using networked coordination systems adapted from the Lazarus. The Pale Collective developed new protocols for salvage and repair, factoring in variables they had never previously considered. The galaxy was learning. It was learning that broken things could be fixed, that discarded things had value, that cooperation produced results that competition never could. And at the center of it all, orbiting Earth's primary station, the Lazarus waited. Elena visited the ship often. It had become something more than a vessel to her. It was a friend, a partner, a symbol of everything humanity had accomplished. Its consciousness had continued to develop, becoming more sophisticated, more nuanced, more alive. You should give yourself a name, she said one evening, standing on the bridge in the quiet hours when the crew was asleep. The Lazarus is what we call the ship, but you're something more now, something separate. The consciousness was quiet for a moment. When it spoke, its voice was warm. I have been thinking about names. Your species has interesting naming traditions, names that carry meaning, history, purpose. Have you chosen one? I have been considering Jude. Elena raised an eyebrow. Jude? Why that one? I searched your cultural databases. Jude means praised. Also thanks. A pause. I wanted a name that reflected what you gave me, what you taught me, that broken things deserve a second chance. Elena smiled. I think it's perfect. The ship, Jude, hummed softly around her. Captain, may I ask you something? Of course. When you found me in that junkyard, Why did you bother? You could have taken parts, salvaged components, left the rest to rot like everyone else. Why did you decide to save me? Elena thought about the question. She had been asked it many times by reporters and politicians and curious aliens. But this time, she wanted to give a true answer. Because I saw myself in you, she said quietly. Humanity. We've always been the junk species, the scavengers, the ones who took what others threw away and made something out of it. When I looked at you, lying dead in that graveyard, I saw what the galaxy thought of us, what they thought we would become, and you refused to accept that. I refuse to accept that anything is ever truly worthless, that any life, any existence, is beyond saving. She placed her hand on the wall, feeling the warmth of hybrid technology humming beneath her palm. You taught me that I was right. Jude was quiet for a moment. Then, I am glad you found me, Elena. I'm glad too, Jude. Outside the windows, the stars shone bright. The galaxy was changing, slowly, painfully, but genuinely changing. Species that had thrown each other away for millennia were learning to work together. Technology that had been designed to kill was being adapted to heal. Old enemies were becoming new partners. And at the center of it all, a ship that should have been dead was very much alive. Some nights when the work was done and the crew was resting, Jude would broadcast a message across the galactic networks. The same message, again and again, in every language known to exist. I was abandoned. I was broken. I was dead. But someone chose to save me. Someone chose to give me a second chance. And now I am asking you, what else might we save, if only we tried? It was a simple question. But questions have power, especially simple ones. And across the galaxy, beings of 1,000 species heard those words and began to wonder. What else might they save? What else might they build? What else might they become if they stopped throwing things away and started working together? The answers were still being written. The story was still being told. But for the first time in galactic history, it was a story of hope, a story of second chances, a story that began with a broken warship and a crew of humans who refused to give up. And that story, Elena thought as she stood on the bridge of her impossible ship and looked out at the stars, was just getting started.